Okay, welcome back to our follow-up episode of 90s Classics on Can't Hardly Wait. Tim, first impressions.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting listening back to our previous podcast. That for some reason I had very little memory of this, which is weird because once I watched it, I remembered that I really liked it at the time, and I remember being really into it at the time. So as to why it didn't lodge itself in my brain all these years, I'm not quite sure, but my first impressions were it was good, problematic in a whole bunch of 90s ways, and I'm sure we'll address. Overall, really likeable, pretty funny, and had some classic moments, albeit possibly not enough. Your impressions?
I guess firstly, I was surprised that you didn't remember it, and it mismatched in my mind with previous conversations I thought we'd had. Yeah, so, okay?
Yeah. No, I don't get it. I don't get it myself either, because once I watched it, I was like, oh, this was an absolute 90s classic. And I don't. For some reason, didn't even remember it.
I am influenced by the fact that, yes, I also listened to our replay of the prequel, and my statements about it were fairly strong, about it being, seminal and era-defining, yep. I believe, came up. Probably didn't quite reach that high bar, but it's a good one for discussion because I really thought it was a real mixture of pros and cons and a fair bit to sink your teeth into.
Well, and I think your comments about it being seminal is it could not have been more 90s
yes.
if it tried.
Yes.
I mean, if someone came to me, if a Gen Z came to me and said, Tim, tell me what the 90s are like, I would say sit down and watch Can't Hardly Wait, because the fashion, the comedy, the stars, the problematic aspects of it, all of that, it absolutely defined the 90s for me. And so I think that's partially probably a reason why it was truly of its time in a very specific way.
And I think we almost have to start with the stars and the cameos, because they went from, oh, look at that, to, oh my goodness, this is overdone, to just embrace it, that's what it's about. They are just name-checking everybody who is anybody for 15 minutes between 1997 and 1999.
Yep.
So I did not make a complete list because my fingers started bleeding from all the typing, but there was the Shermanator.
Yep.
There was Sabrina the Teenage Witch,
yep.
obviously.
So the Shermanator was not yet a star, was he? Because didn't he become a star from America? I did check this because I think he was a star from American Pie.
Right.
And that was the following year.
Okay,
So
yes.
I don't think anyone knew who the Shermanator was.
I think you're probably right.
Movie, yeah.
There was Donald Faison and Breckin Meyer from Clueless.
Yeah.
There was...
Donald Faison, he's Scrubs as well, right?
Oh, yes, he is. Yeah, he's Scrubs.
That's what I recognised him from Turk from Scrubs.
Selma Blair
yep.
in there. I'm sure you can keep going, but it was the Jerry O'Connell appearance, obviously. But it was oh, look at that! Oh, look at that! Oh, they were in that obscure movie. Oh, they were in that.
Well, and also, I mean, a bunch of people that who were complete unknowns at the time, but went on to be people. So there was Amber Benson from Buffy.
I mean, there was half the cast of Buffy, wasn't there?
Yeah,
I thought,
exactly. Half the cast. There was Clea Duvall.
Yep.
There was everyone who was on screen was a big 90s person in some shape or form.
So, was there like a 90s cool club? They were like the Brat Pack, much less famous fashion.
Indeed.
That were all self-referencing one another madly. But anyway,
it did feel like that, didn't it?
That was quite fun. Okay, so give me something you really liked.
I mean, it was a funny movie because it really was multiple stories weaved into one, in the sense that what I would have remembered as being the main storyline between the sort of Ethan Embry, Jennifer Love Hewitt. Actually, I mean, at times we didn't even see them for sort of 15 or 20 minutes at a time. And so I thought the storylines that worked really well were the Seth Green and Lauren Ambrose story. That was obviously both funny and quite poignant. I liked the nerd guy. I think his name was William.
Yep. In this light, you somewhat resemble David Duchovny. Great 90s reference, yes.
Absolute genius. So I thought that whole storyline worked really well. I mean, it was, again, funny, had a sort of amusing end. The main jock, absolute hero. Just, one of those truly hateable people who you just want to punch in the face, but yet you can fully imagine, exactly as per the movie, being just the king of high school, but then being just immediately falling off the pace the minute he leaves. I thought that he was absolutely perfect. I thought those storylines worked really well, and there was some classic moments. The Paradise City scene was genius. Yeah, there was a lot of good lines that maybe we'll go into in due course.
Definitely agree with that. The different stories, different strengths. I thought they nailed the stereotypes by and large.
Yep.
By and large, in that they're the stoners, the nerds, the jocks, and sometimes those things can be too self-referential and not really relevant. But I could recognise most of them from my 90s experience, and I think it's incredibly quotable to the point that I didn't realise that some of the things that I say, that this is where they're from. Like the scene with the jock at the beginning, he's harnessing his guys to go and be dicks.
Yep.
And there's we're staring into the future. And I say that all the time.
Yep.
I've said that in like work presentations, and it's from Can't Hardly Wait. It would seem.
And of course, the one that I'd forgotten it was from this movie, that I can't feel my legs. I have no legs.
Genius.
That's always, I'm sure that's brought out at parties, and I hadn't put two and two together as to what it was from.
I'm harnessing my chi when he's getting ready to talk to her. Yeah. Oh, genius. So I grinned constantly from particular lines. I go with that as well.
And also in the opening scene with the jocks. Yeah. I mean, it's like I always say. Burp. Brilliant.
That's more your sense of humour.
Anyway. Genius.
All right, what else you got? Positives?
I mean, look, I thought it was likeable. It came before American Pie. I was checking American Pie because I think if you recall, American Pie was kind of the start of the gross out era.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was quite nice, but Can't Hardly Wait was really quite wholesome.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know if that's what parties were really like in America in the 90s, but when the worst thing that's going on is sort of drinking and a bit of weed, it felt really like the good old days of those sort of party movies before it was necessary to shock as much as anything else. Which probably resulted that it wasn't as laugh out out loud funny as a lot of the movies that followed. But I did think it was very likable. Yeah, there was never any point where I was thinking, I feel uncomfortable by this, or this is. Yeah, it was well paced. It moved through. All the storylines were interesting, and I thought it all wrapped up pretty neatly. Yeah, there was nothing that was you always knew it was going to end happily, obviously for everyone, and so I really. This is probably not what they were going for, because they were probably trying to be really edgy, but looked at with 2024 eyes, it was actually a really nice, easy to watch, fun movie in a way that kind of almost became very unfashionable almost as soon as American Pie came out, I think.
I would go with that as well. I had a comment that it had heart. I think it tried to be likable, and the douchey things, which we will get to, were clumsy, but most characters were well intended, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I like that. I must admit, like there's a point where it's shock for shock's sake or gross for gross sake or something where it I didn't enjoy it that much then, and I don't enjoy it that much now. It's a bit more clever if you can nail both heart and comedy.
Yeah.
This didn't quite make it, but it made an attempt. So.
Yeah, agreed.
I'll just add a couple of others. Era-appropriate music, very much the era where I was listening to a lot of music on my friends' words, like a bit of punk in there, and like this classic song and that classic song. So that was a bit of a flashback sort of thing. Lots of references of like X-Files and things which were very 90s for us. Probably had a pinch of nerd about our background, so there was just a little. Yeah. So there was resonation there.
It did actually. In fact, it did remind me just how ridiculously huge X-Files was at the time.
Completely.
I mean, there was so much talk about it, and in a weird way, I was like, it felt a bit more niche maybe at the time, and realised no, it was humongous at the time.
It was the first humongous niche, I think. But anyway, yes, it became cool suddenly to be niche.
Yes.
So that probably sees through most of my positives.
Yeah. Did you notice? And this may not mean as much to you as it does to me, but I watched the whole movie and didn't recognise Lauren Ambrose. So Lauren Ambrose being the redhead who Denise, who got with Seth Green's character. So she is now a big star in, amongst other things, Yellowjackets and Servant. So Servant is the M. Night Shyamalan show. It had 4 seasons. It's just finished, but quite recently.
Right.
But funnily enough, I'd been watching it literally in the last week, and I didn't recognise her.
Oof.
I was thinking, she's a little bit familiar. I wonder what she's gone on to do. And then I'm like, right. So 23 years later, she's awesome, like absolutely awesome in Servant. Yeah, has gone on to be really, really successful.
Because I thought that was quite interesting in that she was the one that I couldn't really think what she'd gone on to do, and yet I thought she was possibly comfortably the most talented actor of them.
Yep.
So it was a bit, she's at face value perhaps a little presented as less beautiful than some of the others. Gee, that's super harsh. She's got ability.
Yep.
Well, that's nice to hear.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, it's always easier to say in hindsight, but I do think I did watch it, even despite not realising she'd gone on to be someone famous, that I did think that her and Seth Green were noticeably more talented than others, I thought, in the movie, and we're probably getting to this, but
I think it's time.
It didn't massively shock me that Ethan Embry has not become a megastar.
That was one of my notes. Basically, Ethan Embry, not an A-lister. Yeah. So basically, that was something that he must have connected with me when I was younger, because I remember really rooting for him, and I found him a bit hard to really warm to this time. He wasn't horrible to women, and we'll get to some issues there, but he was quite self-involved and quite just a bit uninteresting, frankly.
I mean, I would have absolutely worshipped him, I'm pretty sure, in 1998, because I think he basically was me. This sort of slightly pathetic guy who...
Just misunderstood.
Yeah, that's right, misunderstood, who, puts all his believes he's going to get the hot girl by writing a letter to her, that throws his heart out to her, but then doesn't actually do anything about it. Everything about that screamed Tim 1998. But watching it now, I'm just like, ooh, I mean, both because I didn't nail the character necessarily, but also just, I think, as we'll probably get to, the entire concept of that main storyline was just a little bit weird and problematic.
Yes.
But I should, having said that, that is actually harsh on Mr. Embry in case he's listening. I actually thought there were parts where I thought he was really great. He was particularly good at the sort of doe-eyed, oh my god, I'm hurt things. I actually really liked him. I just kind of thought he was a bit pathetic, and the patheticness there wasn't enough charisma maybe to overcome that, perhaps.
Yep. I'll go with that. Should we comment on just the central story as well? That, and this is something that 1998 me did not pick up on, but my partner pointed it out, and she's completely right. We never got even the slightest inkling about what Jennifer Love Hewitt was thinking.
Yeah.
It was completely one-sided. She was being worshipped as the pretty girl, and we got one line from her at the end of the movie which maybe gave us some impression about what she was thinking. Other than that, she was a figure. And it robbed it of some breadth, I think it's fair to say.
And also, I mean, her character fundamentally didn't make sense. And I mean, this is just a classic, 90s trope, and in fact a classic high school movie trope, but she is seemingly really smart and really nice, but yet
has gone out with this enormous dick for 5 years.
So obviously a douche for 4 years. I mean, and not just him, but all his friends and the girls who he's been hanging out with, just clearly total douches from minute one. That doesn't really make sense. And so as a result, you don't really, and there's nothing to explain that. It's just that's just what we do in these movies.
Is high school popularity pressure that much?
Yeah.
It was certainly significant, but I don't think it defined every moment of your being for 5 years. Yes.
And similarly, I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I guess it was explained why he broke up with her, but it was, I mean, not really in any meaningful way. As in, you didn't really have any inkling of what their relationship was like the day before they broke up. So it's not really. She seemed genuinely upset by it, which just doesn't fit with the fact that he's just an unbearable douchebag. And so it all. And then why did she turn up at the party at all? It just it didn't make an awful lot of sense to start with, and then. And again, I mean, this is a real 90s thing. I mean, it was incredibly old-fashioned, but the concept of reading a letter by the guy, a person who she doesn't even know, and going, this is worth chasing this guy down and becoming his boyfriend. It just felt so incredibly far-fetched. That use
Instagram at least, okay, if not TikTok. Okay,
it was just a bit hard to latch onto.
Yes, I think I concur. Other concerns. I think we have to get to a couple of significant ones. You go.
The obvious homophobia.
Oh yes. Oh my god.
This was the 90s, so I don't recall in any way being thinking it was anything other than hilarious at the time.
Was it a particularly bad version though?
Yeah,
because one of the whole storylines was entirely based about shaming someone on the basis of homophobia.
Yeah, indeed. And the fact that, it's not like he was... it could have worked if he had a particular homophobia, the main the jock. But he didn't. It was just assumed that everyone has homophobia, and therefore it is by definition the ultimate shame to be caught in a sexual position with another man. Yeah, that was very... And then, of course, his ultimate shame when someone yells, fag, in the final scene. It was like, oh! It's like, I found myself biting my knuckles. It's like, oh, God.
And this is 10 years after Heathers. So Heathers has a homophobia element, but they're already being sort of self-referential and semi-laughing about it. Yep. Like the police who are homophobic are kind of cast in a poor light.
Yeah, true.
This is a decade later, and this was just squarely anti-homo. So that was difficult to see past, quite frankly. The flashback scene where they used exactly the same actors and actresses, exactly the same appearance as they were 4 years later.
Oh yeah,
it was just a bit absurd.
I did think there was some very funny understated gags. Like I thought the Shermanator constantly stealing stuff was actually really quite funny, and with the final of just like jumping in the cop car and driving away, I thought that was good. And right after that as well, the part where the cop walks into the party and gets sprayed with silly string and acts as if he's been like sprayed with mace. I thought that was very funny.
I am a bit of a sucker for an ending where they do the morning after thing, firstly, because we've all had the morning after the party experience where, you wake up going, oh, that was awesome, or you wake up going, what the hell did I do, or you wake up going, oh my God, I've made the biggest fool of myself, and then this kind of the few years later kind of thing, like in a non-serious movie, it's a nice way to get closure sort of thing. And interestingly, did you see the nerd actually is a Harvard professor?
I saw that, yes, a professor of law. Yeah. Absolute legend.
Like, did one more movie and then quit acting and became a Harvard professor.
Yeah, anyway, and in fact, to see he was, I sort of semi-recognised him. I reckon he was one of the kids from Hook.
Oh, geez, okay.
Which I consider a very underrated movie, but I think many people in the world agree with me. But yeah, he was one of the main kids in Hook.
I put that it was a mix of super dated and quite fresh. So when you've got these multiple interwoven storylines, I think inevitably some work and some don't. And maybe the difference, the margin increases with the hindsight of years kind of thing. So,
I think that's right.
Like I agree that the main bad dude, Peter Fasinelli, who was in the Twilight movies, he's the dad.
Oh, okay.
Is genius, like geniusly unlikable. And the scene with Jerry O'Connell and him sitting and talking about the university experience, I could just watch that again and again and again. It's masterpiece. But
I did start wondering why is Jerry O'Connell suddenly at this party?
Because he's lonely and because he's made a stuff of his life.
All right, no, I hear. I actually thought the Barry Manilow stuff was actually quite funny. I thought
couldn't decide what I thought of that, because that was one of the key scenes that I remembered as being an absolute classic. The Jenna Elfman cliche, incredibly on point, decide. And this, I don't know, I didn't think it quite. It wasn't as good as I remember.
Okay. I did think it had one of the relatively rare laugh out loud moments where she walks away and I hope you and Barry Manilow work out.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good.
On the subject of laugh out loud, I would have to agree with your sentiment that it was not laugh out loud very often. It was kind of smile, a bit clever, a bit nostalgic, but I was not falling apart laughing.
Yeah, indeed. And Are you in agreement that the Paradise City scene was great?
I did like the Paradise City scene, but I remembered that one pretty well, so there wasn't any surprises there, but it was good stuff.
Cool. I just do love the fundamental concept of, the nerd who's never drunk gets drunk and just becomes the coolest kid in the school.
Because that always happens.
I'm still
never
trying.
Went the other way.
I'm still trying, and it still doesn't work for me.
All right. Any sort of final sentiments, final thoughts? What'll Can't Heart You 008 leave you with?
Yeah, I mean, it actually left me with overall mostly positive vibes, and it actually made me quite sentimental for the 90s, because it did feel very, very 90s. And I mean, this does lead to our usual question of, could it be remade today, or how does it stack up, and could it be remade? I mean, I think we've already agreed it stacks up well, other than those very problematic issues. Could it be remade today? I mean, it gets remade all the time. People are still making those sort of party movies. I mean, Superbad was basically the same movie, but however many years later.
It's interesting though, you couldn't remake the same tone.
No.
Because you'd either be remaking it as a party in the era that you're currently in, or you'd be trying to do a nostalgia piece about something in the past.
Yeah.
This made no pretense to be anything but exactly what it was at that moment in time. So
it was exactly. I mean, that sort of the gentle level of comedy, I think, just wouldn't play anymore. So it is a style of comedy and a style of movie in the tone rather than the topic that probably almost more than any other movie we've reviewed just wouldn't work. You just couldn't remake it with a different budget and different actors. It would just not work.
So would you watch it again, or if you did, when will you watch it again?
Yeah, I think I would. Well, funnily enough, my wife turned it on just today, and so I actually ended up watching about another half hour of it again, and was getting into it. Her memory of it was a lot better than mine, actually. She specifically remembered the Paradise City scene and was playing along to it. So look, I would. I really liked it. I mean, not necessarily super soon, but I think it would be a comfort movie to put on for me.
That's about where I was. I said that it would have had heart, and even though I had to squint a little bit more to see it through murky glasses, I still felt that it did. I can never quite get over the only you scene in the train station at the end.
Yep.
So I'd probably best give it another decade or so. I think I'd probably let the memories fade a little. Mm-hmm. It's not the last time I've watched Can't Hardly Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, right, on to our next movie, and I believe it is over to you, Tim. What will we be reviewing next?
We are going to be reviewing The Craft.
Oh, genius.
So obviously The Craft, Witches. I think I haven't seen any of them, but I gather there's been a remake recently in some shape or form.
I think that's right, yep. About 96, 95 even. It was early in the teen movies 90s piece.
So IMDb says 1996.
Yep.
So we've got our Robin Tunney, Fairuza Balk and Neve Campbell as our main people, and there's some Skeet Ulrich in there. I don't remember what exactly he does, but and Christine Taylor, as in... I'm pretty sure from Zoolander and from The Brady Bunch.
I was going to say someone's wife, which is unfair because she's a star. Is she Ben Stiller's wife?
I believe so.
Yep.
And look, I mean, I remember absolutely loving it at the time, but I'm not totally convinced that is going to stand up. It was very teen, it was very 90s, and obviously 96, we were sort of 17, 18.
Yeah.
It was a perfect time for it. I did have a particular obsession with Fairuza Balk.
You really did. I have name association with that movie and you and Fairuza Balk.
Indeed.
Yes.
And look, I mean, clearly it's had some impact in the world, because obviously they're now making remakes and people still continue to talk about it to some extent, even though I'm not sure it's necessarily considered a classic.
Yep.
But your memories of it, I have no idea. I can't remember if we saw it
interesting
together.
We did, I think, because there was a Robin Tunney versus Fairuza Balk argument.
There's no argument.
Well, it probably shouldn't have been an argument since it's super single-minded and inappropriate, but that's okay. I remember nothing of what it's about. Mm-hmm. I think it was basically a vehicle of get teen stars together and tap into the occult because it was kind of cool. The specifics on what happens will be a complete surprise to me. I remember the stars clearly, and I remember it was teen and cool and early in the piece. I think Neve Campbell had done some Party of Five but hadn't done Scream yet, would be the order of business there.
Yeah.
So was ascending, if you like.
So presumably meaning Skeet Ulrich obviously. Skeet Ulrich also wouldn't have done
not
Scream.
done Scream. Well, what was, other than End of Days with Arnie, what was Fairuza Balk's kind of thing?
Yeah, I can't remember. I'm not sure what she did before. I mean, she was in Waterboy, I think.
Oh,
I might have made that up, but I think she was in Waterboy with Adam Sandler.
Okay.
But yeah,
lock that one back in the cupboard.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious. I'd mnosed past it and gone, well, that's going to have to be one of the 90s classics.
Yep.
So you've beaten me to it.
Excellent.
I'm genuinely looking forward to watching it. I think my partner regards it as a seminal 90s classic, and will be all over it.
I mean, I remember it being. I suspect we'll find it surprisingly dark, and I remember being a bit more horror-y than you may. I noticed it's rated MA.
I have a feeling we won't find it that great. Not terrible, just it doesn't really stand in my mind as being particularly remarkable.
Yep.
So I wonder if it was a bit more gloss than substance. But yeah, let's find out.
Indeed. Okay, well, very good. We will be back with the prize.
Bring it on.